Imagine $3 buying you this. Or this. Or this. 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 Or imagine $3 making you hundreds of dollars off of this. Hey guys, it's Dave. I have been looking forward to this for days. Bad weather down south delayed my package a little bit, but I have got some seeds from Rick and Swiffer's Hoyas. I've mentioned him, I think, a few times in the video by now. Just a world traveler, Hoya collector, hybridizer, grower. Seems like a cool guy, and he's got a lot of great memes. I'll give you more information on his Facebook page, which is a 100% good vibes page, mostly where he sells his plants and his seeds. This is seed season, so now is the time. And I've got something quite special here. I know I just recently said that I find unboxings incredibly boring. I do not like them. This is an unenveloping. This is different. This is not the same thing at all. Let's see what we have here. We've got an envelope with a little envelope in here. Is that upside down? No, it's not. This is a package of 10 seeds. They were $3 per seed, and a very, very cool plant. This variant has leaves that are between 8 and 10 inches long. They're thick. They're 2 inches wide. We're turning this into a Cinemax After Dark show. I'll just put a picture up now and stop talking about how thick and long these leaves are. If you have never planted seeds before, sown seeds, they stick to your skin really easily. So I recommend some tweezers. So I pre-mixed some soil. This is in a 3-inch container. Give me a moment. I'm rethinking this. Do I want to put this in a smaller container? And I will just take a cup of my normal mix, which is perlite, cocoa chip, and cocoa peat. I will grab one by the fluff. Imagine this little piece of fluff catching the wind and just going bye-bye. So what we're going to do is just, we're just going to lay that on top here, and that's it. And I'm going to do that 10 times. There are 10 seeds, 8 cups. 2 cups are going to have 2 seeds each, and the rest will have 1. And I'll join you in just a moment. And that's that for that part of it. I am going to simply take a sprayer and moisten the substrate. As a temporary measure, I have a spinach container with some holes in it and pre-moistened perlite. And I will just fit these in here. These should germinate in a day or two. So they'll start popping up. I'm going to also keep this in my tent. It's going to get perfect lighting, perfect humidity in this box with aeration or vent holes. I guess, is that aeration? I don't know. It has venting. And I'm going to set this aside and rejoin you in 1 second. Okay, I'm going to practice only pronouncing one I on the end of this Hoya. This is Hoya papashoni, a really super cool Hoya. It's terrestrial, so it's a bushy in the ground growing Hoya. It's not an epiphyte. And not one you're going to find at the garden center, that is for sure. A dear friend of mine gave me these seeds, and I planted them this winter. And I had kept the seeds long enough that I didn't expect this many to germinate. I probably would have done this differently. We've got a whole mess of seedlings here, so they're certainly due to get planted. Doug at Vermont Hoya grows this particular species in perlite and sphagnum moss. And so I'm going to do some in that mix. We seem to have different issues growing Hoya. He's an overwaterer generally, and some that he struggles with, I don't have any problem with at all. So I'm just going to find out. I'm going to plant the rest of these in my normal mix and maybe add a little bit of sphagnum moss to it. Just, you don't want it to dry out. Like, think about your multiflora, for instance. So let's get to it. Okay, what I think I'm going to do is start with some of these 3-inch containers and see how that goes. I'll fill up a few different things here and see if I like what I'm seeing. I'm very messy, as many of you already know. Now, unlike my other videos where I am potting a plant or checking on root health, where I kind of abuse those roots, I will be very gentle with these. These are baby roots and they need to be handled with extreme care. So it's a different side of Sober Plant Guy than you're used to. Ooh. And these cups with the holes that we just used, I'll fill up a couple of these as well. And we're just going to see what I end up liking more. That's a terrible mix for this. There we go. Thank you for the cheese bone, Lexi. I'll fill that up later. Thank you for those who watched my favorite products review episode and pointed out that I had neglected to mention the kitchen butter knife as one of my favorite tools, which it most certainly is, if no other reason, just to poke my wife. Let's take a look here. I might need that kitchen knife. I hadn't thought of that. Okay. So it looks like I'm just going to be able to remove that like a pizza. This winter, I took this out of, what was the order of operation? I think I took it out of the prop box for a bit. I was doing something, checking on it. I took it out and without the lid on it, and I set it aside, and I'll go ahead and blame long COVID. I forgot about it. I thought they were all going to die. They wilted away so badly and looked absolutely horrible, and I thought I was going to have to report to my friend that I had murdered a tray full of these really unique and not like exactly easy or cheap to get a hold of plants. No problem. They all came back with flying colors. So look at that. Beautiful. I love it. So that's going to be a plant right there. What? Am I high? Why did I fill these up all the way? Listen, guys, I've told you the struggle with long COVID is real. It really is. My brain does not work as well as it used to. However, it used to work. So I'm going to put, there's some, I know you can't see this, but there's some sphagnum moss and some material. I might even like do a couple, like a big pot of these in a, like one of my 4 inches over here. We'll see. let's just get started. And when there are this many plants, it's easy to be brave. You know, obviously it feels like there's less at risk here than perhaps if I had just ordered an expensive plant. And, you know, those of you returning know that, you know, I don't like to be a contrarian just to be a contrarian. I like to try, I just like to know myself what works and doesn't work. And just because I read 10 times that something should be done a certain way doesn't mean I believe it. It's just how I am. I want to know for a fact. And what I have found is that by and large, there's this fundamental base of knowledge that is absolutely positively solid. And then there's the nuance of growing plants, the nuance of the conditions you have, the conditions you're willing to provide, your care. I'm going to go for a 4-inch here. It's got a squish bottom so you can push these out. So really understanding that there's nuance to everything really changed my indoor gardening some time back, and I became much, much better and much more successful. Certainly more confident. And when something does not work out, that's a learning experience, right? Nothing more than that. You know, I think I mentioned recently, I don't consider it a failure. It's just something I have learned and that I can apply to future plants. That is all that being a good indoor gardener is. Learned experience. And not replicating mistake after mistake after mistake. So, and I kind of, some of these are coming out a little willy-nilly, so I'm trying not to pull the root system loose and getting, you know, a little bouquet. I might add in another one. Now these are going to look a little sad, being pulled out of the substrate, you know, that was holding them up high and proud. They will adjust 100%, no doubt in my mind at all. So it'll just take a little time. They probably look sad today and are destined to look sadder tomorrow. But they'll be all right. They really will be. And this mix, you know, there's quite a bit of sphagnum mosses going into this container right now. So, speaking of mistakes I have made, or, you know, things I've done that I've learned along the way don't work. I used to, when I was doing, say, something like this, a young propagation, I tended to use a lot more cocoa coir because I just felt like there's no way this is going to grow in my super duper chunky substrate. And I'm going back in time a little bit, but what would happen is I would have plants doing just fantastically, and then I'd have one or two that just weren't doing anything. And they were just in this packed cocoa coir, and there was nowhere for the delicate roots to go. So, lesson learned there. Way better off on Hoya, just going ahead and using that chunky substrate. I'll say that in the beginning. Now, if this were a different kind of plant, I would not be leaving all of this sphagnum moss on, but since it's this particular kind of plant, I'm doing that on purpose. Ordinarily, I would try to get more sphagnum moss off so that the roots don't rot. So I'm gonna just grab some, you can't see it, but this is going for the sphagnum moss behind you and mixing in some perlite there. So I'm gonna do a few just in sphagnum moss. And I'm really excited about these. This is gonna be fun to grow, and to buy one of these plants right now is pretty expensive. I would imagine that the demand is not very high, so people want to be compensated for taking the time to grow them and stuff. When mine are ready to be sold, they'll be affordable. And I'm not criticizing anybody that needs to make money growing plants. I don't mean to say that. I just have the luxury of having a whole lot of them here, and I'll be able to share them with the world for less money because I'm not running a business. So, advantage to me in that regard. Yeah, this looks good. So, I'll do a few like this. I just did that like there's a substrate in here, trying to even it out. And I wouldn't recommend spanking these delicate ones anyway. So there's a little perlite, but that looks pretty good. I was saying before the battery so rudely cut me off that I've had a few requests to do a Hoya basics video, and my initial reaction was, I don't know what I have to add to that conversation. I try to talk through things as I do repotting and so forth. Like I said, I'm not just an enormous fan of just house tours and just showing plants and showing plants and showing plants, unless there's something interesting to say about them. And of course there is with Hoya, duh. And then I spent a little bit of this weekend looking at just what's out there. And what's out there is essentially those broad knowledge base videos, like I was kind of saying. So just the real fundamentals, which is good, if incomplete to me. And one of the really good basic overviews I saw was Ashley Anita, is that her name? She did a really nice job with hers, but I haven't found one that addresses so many of the questions that come up on Facebook groups over and over and over again. Now, one, none of the nuance, none of the, this is what you should know about growing a Hoya, and then that nuance. This is where I went off the beaten path to see what would happen. These are the conditions I'm growing in that make it less than ideal or perfectly ideal. I mean, someone growing in a perfectly ideal situation, talking about how to grow Hoya is going to be very different. Like Rick lives in Florida. He grows tons outside. He's got a greenhouse down there, which is very different from me growing them in my living room, which goes down to the teens in humidity without 3 humidifiers running 24 hours a day. So very different conditions. Is that something any of you would be interested in? Because I think it would become a long video if I start talking about specifics like, what are these black spots on my leaves or under my leaves, and et cetera and so forth. But do let me know in the comments if that's something you would like to see. I'd be happy to do it. It would take some doing, and I already sketched out all my ideas on it, and I was like, I have a ton to say about Hoyas that I haven't seen said. So if anyone wants to see an indexed version of that so you could skip around, let me know. Would it be crazy? I'm sorry, my nose itches so much. It would be crazy to plant all of this, right? It would be. It would just be nuts. Let's see if I can split it up. I'm going to. I don't know that I'm not just going to tear. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to leave it. It's going in a heavily sphagnum moss and my normal mix. There's a video you never will see me make, is the do-it-yourself potting soil, because it takes about 3 seconds to describe mixing perlite, cocoa peat or cocoa coir, and cocoa chunks. And I'm glad that you have enjoyed my Amazon links on the products. Thank you for commenting on that and showing your support to the channel. Really, really, really appreciate it. This is, I don't know if this will be mine. This will probably be mine. Okay. I was going to say, I don't know who's going to get this. We know who's going to get it. I'm going to get this. Of course, I'm going to get the best one. Now, they'll all be good when they start growing. But let's get these last few. Ooh, there's a good root system. So again, it's not going to surprise me if these don't all live. But most of them will. The critical step, if you elect to do this, and I hope you do, is to keep it moist. It would be a bad day for these seedlings if they dry out. And how pretty is that? There we go. We got a whole slew of seedlings to grow up. Turn these into beautiful plants. I'll put these in my tent, not under too bright a light. These were living in the middle of the tent on the floor, so they were getting kind of indirect light. The seeds will join them, and as those germinate and grow, they'll outgrow that container very quickly. So I'll find something else for it. And then as they grow, and I'll give updates, I'll pop the lid on that, and it's plenty humid in there. So no worries on that. But that's it. That is growing from seed. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've had a little bit of time to treat yourself to something nice today. Come join me in the next one real soon, okay? Bye-bye.